Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting for Council on March 16th, 2022, and we're beginning at 6 p.m. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda, and so I'm asking councillors here and at home if there are any emergent items for tonight. Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, I would move that Council...
I think we just have to check with Ledge Services first. There's nothing from Council, anything from administration as far as emergent items?
They weren't quick enough. It's too bad. Over.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration's recommending that we make a couple amendments to the agenda. That's include item 2 in-camera items, item 16.3, medical services advice from officials, 16.4, council CAO dialogue advice from officials, and then move the initial CAO evaluation to 16.5.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Peterson, are you ready?
Your Worship, I would move the Council adopt the March 16th, 2022 regular Council meeting agenda as amended.
Thank
Do
you.
you want me to read the the changes are good?
I'll call the question. All in favor? And, Deputy Mayor, there you are. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to presentations and our recognitions. 3.1, the 2021-2022 RCMP Quarter 3 Municipal Policing Report. We have our new staff sergeant. Good evening and welcome. And just before you start, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself again, just for the people at home. And I just wanted to take a minute just to tell you how impressed I was with the report. It was really clear, it was good to follow, and just full of information. I really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. All of my comments this evening will be through the chair through the CAO to the chair and to the rest of council for the duration of this presentation. Again, my name is Staff Sergeant Mark Wilgosh. I've been here since July. I've been having a great time here in Strathmore, and the community has been very welcoming, as has our staff and council and administration here within the town, and has been very helpful with my transition here, and certainly we've been working towards having a great working relationship. I'd like to thank council again for the opportunity to appear before you again tonight to give you an update on the progress of our policing priorities for quarter 3 through this fiscal year. I'd anticipated appearing a little earlier, but we've had some tumultuous times through the province. We had some protests down on the border, and it caused a bit of delays for a few of our departments. But nevertheless, I'm here tonight and happy to provide you the status update for quarter 3. As you're aware, we have 3 main priorities that we will be focusing on for this fiscal year, starting off with our property crimes initiative. Again, seeking to find up to a 5% reduction in our theft of vehicles, theft from motor vehicles, and our break-and enters within the community. We seek to achieve that not only through conventional policing methods, but with our enhanced initiatives, looking to be strategic with our resources and to find more targeted ways to seek these reductions. One of those programs that we have in place is our Habitual Offender Management Program. As noted in your reports before you, offenders are selected based on the volumes of crimes that they commit, seriousness of crimes, the likelihood of reoffending, and the impact of those crimes on communities. I can tell you that we've increased the number of offenders that we were monitoring through quarter 3, then that includes our rural areas, because we do have offenders that do impact Strathmore that don't necessarily live in our town. We've increased the number of offenders that we're monitoring to 9. As we can see through quarter 3, our members documented 38 dedicated checks, and that's to make sure that those offenders are abiding by their court-ordered conditions and ensuring that we're checking in with them and helping them maintain a law-abiding lifestyle within our community and surrounding areas. I've laid out the reasons for selection for these specific offenders that we've identified. I can tell you as a bit of a sneak peek for quarter 4 and that we're adding to the list of people that we've been identifying. And again, that's a way to be strategic with our resources and targeting those who, the 10 to 20% of our population that commit the majority of crimes in our communities. Our Persons of Interest program, that is underway. We identify a number of persons who may not necessarily be bound by court-ordered conditions, but persons who are living in our communities that have a criminal background in their histories. They may or may not be living law-abiding lifestyles, but again, we're aware of them, we check in with them, and we do what we can to ensure that they are transitioning to a law-abiding lifestyle within our community. But these are people that we do keep an eye out for, again, just to make sure that we're monitoring any potential threats to our community, and again, maintaining safe communities is a priority for us. That program itself is managed by our General Investigations section. So for those who may not be aware, we have 2 municipally funded plainclothes members in our detachment that provide that enhanced policing service to our communities, such as more complex investigations, more serious persons crimes, drug offenses, and more so an aggressive, I guess, being professionally aggressive with monitoring our habitual offender management program. Historically, those 2 members have worked exclusively within the town of Strathmore limits. I've since expanded their responsibilities to include our general rural area with the enhancement by adding a rural resource into that unit. So I've added a provincial resource into the unit, and the reason being is that we live in a geographical area where we have traveling offenders that travel through the Calgary urban area. We are certainly part of that. We may have offenders who are committing crimes within Strathmore but don't necessarily live within Strathmore, so it's more of a regional approach in our post model while adding that rural resource into that unit. So the idea with that is, again, we have some reciprocity between rural policing and our municipal policing to achieve our crime reduction goals, not only in Strathmore but in our rural areas as well. Again, we do have external threats to the community, and again, just because they don't live here doesn't mean they don't come here to commit crimes within our community. So that is a bit of an enhancement and internal move that we've made within our detachment. So our security screw program, I have yet to approach our local businesses to roll out that program, but the fasteners are in the detachment. I'd hope to bring one for you tonight to have a look at it. Unfortunately, it's still sitting on my desk, so maybe next time I'll have it ready for you. But that is another program we plan to roll out to minimize and prevent license plate theft in our community, and that is on its way. Our theft prevention program is still under development. We're still looking to find a sufficient volunteer base to help us out with that. Efforts are still on the go for that. Our crime prevention through environmental design, or CEPTED program, we're still looking to establish that and to see what model works best for our community, keeping in mind the amount of time that our resources have to devote to the program, but certainly making that information available through our social media means and electronic means through the town is an option. Just so our residents are aware of ways to help minimize the possibility of becoming a victim of crime. I've laid out our property crime comparisons through the last 3 years in our selected areas. Our Q3 results are laid out for you overall. We are on track largely to meet all of our goals with exception of theft of motor vehicles. We had a bit of a spike in the first 2 quarters, but we're leveling out a bit. But I can say in the other 2 selected areas with theft from vehicles and break-in enters are down and within our reduction limits, or reduction goals, if you will. Traffic safety, our second priority for the year. I've laid out our enforcement results both within the detachment as well as our enhanced programs as well. I can tell you that in Q3 we had 10 documented check stops. As you can see, I've laid out the results of those check stops. Overall, 4 violations were issued, 4 immediate roadside sanction suspensions were issued, as well as 2 impaired suspensions. And as far as total vehicles checked, we estimate we checked around 1,365 vehicles through Q3 in those 10 check stops. I've included a couple photos for you, just so you can see where our members have been working throughout the town and our area to move forward on our road safety measures. Our enhanced road safety initiative, we're still piloting that within the town as far as adding additional enhanced shifts to target high impact areas such as intersection offenses and distracted driving. Those that we found were drivers between Q1 and Q2 with our elevated injury and overall collision rates. As you can see in Q3, as a result of implementing some of our internal measures and performance measures, we're seeing that our levels are reducing. And if you take a look at our year-to-date numbers, when these measures were implemented in August, we're starting to see a downward trend in our overall collisions, as you see in the graphic before you. So our measures are having some traction, and we're looking to see if we can continue to build on those results. With community engagement, that's as noted before, appearing before council, that is I consider it to be one of our greatest priorities as far as policing services and providing community-based policing services within the town of Strathmore and our surrounding areas. We do play a particular focus on that, being that we want to meet people where they are. We want to create those positive relationships between the public and our members. And again, being approachable and visible within the community is important for us. With that, our members conduct school visits, unfortunately through quarter three. And when I say quarter three, that's in the fiscal year. That covers October, November, December. We've got Christmas break through there. And as we all remember, there were some restrictions that were re-implemented around that period of time. So we didn't get in schools as much as we had anticipated through that quarter, but I do expect those numbers to increase as I appear before you in subsequent quarters and into the next fiscal year. But during those times, our members are seeking to foster positive relationships with our youth and to build upon, again, that community policing model where we have open lines of communication and youth are comfortable with the presence of our members. They can report crime, and again, we're here to support our youth in the community. We do attend a number of community events throughout the quarter, as I've laid them out there for you. And again, that's meeting people where they are and making sure we're participating in the community-based events. Of note, through quarter three, Remembrance Day was well attended by our members, not only in the town of Strathmore, but our surrounding areas as well. And it was fortunately a nice day that day for all those who were there. It was a warm day, and we didn't have to have our parkas on, and not what I was used to up north with 20 to 30 below weather, and hoping that your ears don't freeze off. But one point that I thought was kind of interesting with the spirited volleyball game, my members attended a game just to watch and ended up being referees between spectators and parents, so it was a very, very passionate game. I didn't see what the score was, but that might have been the source of some of the contention. But again, our members do participate in and like to attend those high school and junior high school sports games. We have our community liaison program, and that's intended to make sure that our various groups in the community have a way to access policing services, if not always to report crime, but also for information and that resource that they can call should they have an emerging problem, perhaps any issues with or problems that their employees may be facing, and they're seeking that support in a non-official way where people have to come to the office. They make contact. Our members are assigned to these groups. They make contact on a monthly basis, and it's another way that we can seek feedback from the community on their perceptions of crime, what they're looking for in policing services. It's another way we can engage the public to make sure that we're tailoring the service that we provide to the community for the community that we're serving. So I've listed out the number of community groups that our members are assigned to. Again, and if there are community groups out there that would like to have a member assigned, I'm welcome to pick up the phone and see what we can do to set that up. Indigenous community engagement is part of our letter of understanding. We do follow that letter of understanding with our First Nations communities, or Indigenous communities, and we do seek to engage with them as much as possible. Through quarter three, our members, myself and Sergeant Salmon, who is here with me tonight, as well as members of our surrounding detachments, attended the first of 4 planned sessions for our Indigenous awareness and sensitivity training with Siksika Nation elders, or Siksika Nation. We do intend to have 3 more sessions as part of a 4-session plan, where all of our members will be attending these sessions, including our support staff. So that initiative is moving forward. We're looking to schedule our 2nd session here probably within the next 30 days, and we'd like to continue that trend to keep that going forward. Another initiative that we have that we're seeing a great success with is our Watch Clerk program. So the program started in late 2018, or so it's 2017, 2018, where our municipal contract holders, so that being the town of Strathmore, Wheatland County, and Rocky County, contributed funds to have a Watch Clerk, for the Watch Clerk program. So what that program is we have a number of enhanced support staff that form a pool that largely overtake the administrative tasks, or take a number of administrative tasks off the plates of our members. If they're spending less time in the office doing tasks such as completing paperwork, putting together court packages, doing background checks, etc., then that means that they're spending more time on the road. And with that, I know that I've been receiving feedback since I've arrived here that our members of the community, both in the rural areas and in the town of Strathmore, are noticing our members out on the road more. The idea being we want to have our members out there preventing, detecting, and deterring crime, engaging with our community, and ensuring that we're maintaining safe communities and safe roads. That program has been of great assistance to ensure that happens. We value our Watch Clerk program, and they provide a valuable support to our frontline members. I've laid out that, based on some calculations, with a fully staffed Watch Clerk pool, potentially we could be saving around 2,200 to 3,400 man hours each year for extra hours that members can spend on the road. So it's a worthwhile investment and something that we're greatly appreciative to our municipal and our rural stakeholders for supporting. I can tell you as part of that program, in addition to the 3 funded positions, I've also reallocated a public service position, so that's a provincial, inclusion or a provincial resource inclusion into that pool. So that brings our Watch Clerk pool up to 4 positions, 1 for each one of our watches. So it's more of an equal and balanced contribution to that program. So it's not just the municipalities contributing. I've reallocated that resource into that pool, so we have an equal share in that program. I've included our year-to-date calls for service. I can say that we're meeting more of our historical norm, and historical being last year. We may see over the next couple of years with loosening of restrictions and things starting to open up, we may see a bit higher call volume. That is yet to be seen. We'll see how things go, but we're pretty close to where we were last year. And traffic complaints or traffic calls for service and investigations, that includes violation tickets issued as part of electronic ticketing. We see this year overall was a little higher than last year, but as you can see in December, we're meeting more of our historical numbers on that regard. That essentially is the Q3 report. The quick version, if there's any questions from council, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Just a couple from me. First, I was really impressed with seeing how you were able to get another position as a watch clerk to have all four watches supported. I think that's been a great thing. I wanted to share with you at our last Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting, the Mayor of Rockyford, Darcy Burke, was really impressed with seeing members there, and he credited it to the watch clerk program because we had discussed it and we've been working on it for a while with the county, and so I just wanted to share that with you, that they've been very impressed. The environmental design one I thought was interesting too, because until the detachment started raising that with me, I never thought much about that. But now when you drive around, I've noticed some of the schools have trees that completely block the front. So it's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on into the future. So thank you very much for your report. And I think I have Councillor Wiley first and then Councillor Peterson.
Hi, thanks for coming. I also wanted to share something with you. I don't know if you saw our 2021 community satisfaction survey. The results were 95% of people in Strathmore are either satisfied or very satisfied, and that's during COVID, so it's really good. When asked why are you satisfied, one of the most common responses was community safety. So thank you for the work that your detachment's doing.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things that I always think about is how our goals find a juxtaposition between municipal council and policing, and I just am so impressed with what's been accomplished here. And 2 examples that stand out to me is council's commitment to the women's shelter and the Strathmore Overnight Shelter, and the work that you've done to support those 2 agencies has just been stellar. It's been outstanding. And I know that from firsthand experience. And the other thing is the Strathmore, or the Siksika Strathmore Anti-Racism Initiative, and the work that your policing community have engaged in. It's been really impressive, and it just has sort of brought full circle the kind of work that we're trying to do, and you've been such an important part of that. In terms of the watch clerk, just to confirm, you said between 2,200 and 3,200 hours?
At peak, if it's fully staffed, so that if we have vacancies for any reason, it means we have fewer people in the pool, that's less work that they're able to accomplish. But that is potentially the amount of man hours that can be saved for our membership, depending how many members we have working. So it's a hard number to try and fix. It's a difficult formula, but that's the potential.
But even if you hit a mean, to think about 100 additional days of policing, That's extraordinary. And so one of the things that I'm really committed to, and I know this council feels the same, is, you know, to not have to fight that fight for those watch clerk dollars all the time, to make it just an accepted integral part of policing in this community. Thank you again.
Certainly, the investment made by the town as well as our counties is a valuable investment in community safety, and it certainly has shown its results since its inception.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Staff Sergeant Wilgosh. It was great seeing you. Sergeant Salmon, nice to see you again, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
And one just quick comment, if I may, Your Worship. I've reported on Q3. Q4 is coming, so at the end of March, at the end of this month, it's over, and I will be before council again for Q4 year end in the fiscal year. But with that, I will be appearing before council, and there may be some training opportunities, as Mr. Scobell may allude to later, with respect to our planning for the next fiscal year and what priorities are we going to focus on within Strathmore and our surrounding areas. I guess as a departing message for council, just to have it in your minds, and if you're speaking with constituents here in the town, what are the main priorities and goals and focuses that we should be paying attention to into the next fiscal year? So we are undertaking a number of ways to engage the community. Many of them I've referred to tonight, as well as the virtual town hall that we had in October, and ongoing internal and external scans. And part of that is including the wishes and desires from council and that of the general public to provide the policing services that the town of Strathmore and our residents are looking for. So with that, perhaps going forward, and I guess having it in your minds, looking towards what priorities should we have going to next year. They could be very different than what we have here. I don't predict that they're going to be much different or very much change. But again, that's where we're seeking that input and direction from council as far as what do you want to see from your policing service.
Okay, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks. Okay, we have no public comments tonight in number 4. We move on to number 5, delegations. 5.1, Happy Cat Sanctuary delegation. And good evening and welcome. And if you wouldn't mind coming to the microphone and introducing, I know we have Vaughn's mom here tonight, but and Barb, if you wouldn't mind saying your last name for us as well. Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome. We look forward to hearing from you.
We don't need that. You go ahead and
Okay. Your Worship and councillors, this is Michelle Shave, and I'm Barb Stefanich, and we're the co-founders of the Happy Cat Sanctuary. In 2021, we rescued 236 cats, with 117 of these cats coming directly from the town of Strathmore. Our TNR program, which is trap, neuter, spay, and release, we captured 39 cats in the town. We adopted 116 cats into new homes. We now have approximately 30 volunteers that help at the adoption center and with the cat rescue. The ages of our volunteers are between 8 years old and senior citizens. We have a great group of people helping us from FAME, church groups, and different schools. So for our 2022 budget, at the beginning of January, our bank balance was $20,000. We generally get $40,000 a year with donations. Our adoption fees are approximately $16,000. And we're hoping this year to receive $50,000 for the MOU funding from the town of Strathmore. The total budgeted revenues for 2022 would be $126,000. Our budgeted expenses for 2022, our vet expenses are approximately $70,000 a year. The rental of our adoption center is $17,500 a year. And we have found that the adoption center has been wonderful for the town, for us, for the volunteers, for kids stopping in on Saturday to play with the cats. And so the adoption center, even though it's that much money, is really good for the town. Our administration expenses are $26,000, and other expenses would be around $15,000. The majority of our food and litter is donated. Our volunteers approximately put in 4,700 hours a year. So our total budgeted expenses are $129,000, which is pretty much what we're looking for revenue. When we first started Happy Cat Sanctuary in 2003, there were cats and kittens roaming the streets in large numbers. The work that we have done over the last 17 years has made the town almost free of feral and stray cats. We have rescued over 2,000 cats and kittens in our 17 years. When we got the original funding from the town at $33,000 a year, we were ecstatic. Strathmore is one of the few towns that has actually taken the initiative to help a cat rescue take care of a cat problem within their town. We have done what we said we would do. In 2018 and 2019, we took 100 cats each year from within the town and found them new homes. In 2020, with COVID, we weren't able to do as many cats. In 2021, we have taken 236 cats in total, with 50% coming directly from the town. Going forward, we want to continue to be of service to the residents of the town of Strathmore. A few of the areas we help and serve the residents are: we take cats that they can no longer keep due to numerous family problems and health issues. We adopt fully fixed, vaccinated, and microchipped cats from $150 to $200. We are helping families that could not afford a cat, a pet, to be able to get one. We are helping with feral cats by helping the residents catch them, and we spay or neuter them so they do not cause as much trouble in a town setting, and they will also no longer reproduce. It is vital for Happy Cat Sanctuary that we continue to receive funding from the town of Strathmore for us to continue operating and doing the great job that we are doing. Otherwise, we would have to close. It would be devastating for us, all of our volunteers, the residents of Strathmore, and of course, the town of Strathmore, if we had to close. I know all the vet clinics would become overrun with stray cats. The town and bylaw services would also become overrun with cats. Thank you very much. Or was I going to do this? Oh yeah, sorry. I have one more page to read. In order for us to continue, we have to change a few things in our organization. Michelle Shave, co-founder, has been hired to run the day-to-day requirements of Happy Cat. She will still remain as our president. This is an important position as a rescue is run just like a business, with reporting to the government every year with everything. We are so excited and grateful that Michelle accepted our offer, and she has been doing this job free of charge for 17 years. Also in the future, we do not see us being able to have a casino for quite a few years. This cuts our revenue by $40,000 to $50,000 every 2.5 years. We have really enjoyed our relationship with Bylaw in 2021 and are hoping this continues to grow. So for us to continue to do this very needed work, we are asking the town for the following funding per year. We are asking for $50,000 for the town of Strathmore for 2022 funding, 50% of the cats we rescued in 2021 came directly from the town. The revenue that we are budgeting for next year have Happy Cat raising $76,000, which is 60% of the revenues, even though half of the cats are coming from the town. Happy Cat has a special agreement with 4 vet clinics, as we are a registered Canadian charity, and this saves us 40% in veterinary fees. We are not only saving the town of Strathmore thousands of dollars each year for all the work we do, but the town residents love us and what we do, and they love the town for what they are doing to help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Any questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Peterson?
So I have a comment, Your Worship, and that is that I don't think that we can emphasize enough what you've done to build a volunteer base in our community. And speaking from the experience of my own grandchildren being a part of that before they got involved in sports. And so what a wonderful opportunity for young children to be able to come into a space that's safe and supervised, and where they have tasks that they must perform, and they're not pleasant. And yet, at least not all of them. And yet it gives these children this understanding that they are giving back to their community, that they are building a sense of self-worth and getting an idea of their own power and how they can impact their community positively. And the value of building a volunteer base in a community, when you start with children and know that they will volunteer for the rest of their lives, they will be looking for spaces to make a difference in their community. You are, I think, one of the singular spaces in this community that actually does that. And it's one of the things that it was an unanticipated advantage when you opened up in the downtown. And I'm just incredibly impressed with what you've been able to accomplish. And the two of you, I know for all the years that you volunteered, you know, anybody can do a volunteer run for a little while. But when you do it for decades, it's humbling. And I'm very, very grateful for what you've done. And I know you save us money. I know you save us money. And I'm old enough to remember what it was like when you weren't here.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Wiley?
So there's a lot of items on our agenda tonight, but for some reason this Happy Cat presentation has been obsessing my mind for an entire week. I went into this wanting to be a grumpy old man looking at ways to cut money. And your data has completely shown me, I don't think there is possibly a cheaper alternative to this. So for people listening at home, I just want to highlight a couple of the things from the presentation. 236 cats were rescued last year. 4,700 hours in volunteer work. Food and litter has been predominantly donated. 40% off of the vet fees. There are probably people in the community thinking, why don't we just euthanize them all? That's not cheaper. It actually would not be cheaper. Even if you were heartless and said, we'll just kill them all, it would not be cheaper because you would lose your volunteers. You couldn't do it anyway. You'd have to keep them for 10 days. And at that point, they still need to see a vet. They still need care. And so the bulk of the fees is still that early vet. I've been talking to everyone. And when I ask people, what do you think the town should be paying per cat? Because whether you like it or not, there's 236 cats that were rescued last year. So what do you think is a reasonable amount? I think I asked Denise, what is it just straight up to euthanize a cat at a veterinary clinic? Is it $250? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So even if you go, what's the absolute cheapest? No one could guess that we're only paying $150 a cat. And that is a credit to everything you've built. So again, I would challenge people, like, this is a big price tag, but the problem's not going away just because we don't like it. And so I think I'm happy to say your data has completely persuaded me that this is the most economically affordable way, and it's a good thing. So thank you for the presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I just want to keep it nice and short and sweet, and just say that I also, as someone who has called you to deal with cats before, appreciate the work that you do in our community, and I also want to point out one letter of support that you received, and it's one that's close to my heart, and that's from Fame, because I don't believe that this gets the attention that it deserves, and that not only are you building a volunteer base, as Councillor Peterson so eloquently put, you're also providing a safe space for people with special needs and disabilities to come in, get work experience, and to feel valued and needed in a space, and to feel like they have a job and they have a purpose. Yeah. And I know firsthand what that means to those folks. Yeah. Yeah. So I am a cat person, and as much as good as you do for the cats, which is abundantly clear in the materials you've given us, you also do a lot for our community and for vulnerable members of our community as well. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that, and really thank you for that work.
That was our hope, really.
One of our greatest things too is when an elderly person phones us and says their cat is so ill and they can't afford to euthanize it, and we pay for that. Like that to me, like it brings me shivers to be able to help someone, because I know what it's like to have to put down multiple animals, and it's never easy. And to watch them suffer even overnight till you get to a vet clinic is one of the hardest things. So stuff that we can do like that really just...
There's a lot that we do behind the scenes that really isn't accounted for.
Yeah, it's not in these numbers. Like we help with surgeries, we help with all sorts of stuff, so...
Thank you very much, Councillor Langmaid, and thank you for adding that personal touch. Councillor Wegener.
Again, thank you for the presentation. I kind of started out like Brent, much shorter, grumpy old man. But one of the things that gets me, and it's the County of Wheatland has refused to fund Happy Cat. Maybe I'm not allowed to say this, I don't know. Have they given reasons why, or have you approached them lately, or?
We approached them last year, and I think mostly their opinion is they're like a gopher. If you don't like them, just pull out your gun and get rid of them, and nobody cares. Like, that sounds crude, but that is, that's the impression we got. And I know, like living in Wheatland County, I know that's the opinion of the majority of the farmers out there, like the Hutterites and the big farms. It's the cattle yards. They're a nuisance, just like a gopher, and that's unfortunately how they treat them. And they're just not going to pay any money for us to help. So we help because we're helping people that have a problem.
I'd love to be able to somehow educate, like just get the word out that there's other ways that we can help, but like you have to work with us here. So, I mean, we're open to suggestions, of course, on how to do that.
All right, thank you. That was kind of the answer I was expecting.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wegener. Just before I go to Councillor Peterson, I just have a quick question. When you say there are 119 out-of-town rescues, so do you get contacted by people in the county?
Well, that includes the county. It includes Calgary, Langdon, Rocky View. Like we get calls from everyone, but we do make a huge effort to really take every handful cat that we can help in the town.
Yeah,
that is a priority.
I honestly don't think there was more than a handful of Strathmore-based cat responses that we didn't handle. So if we were like at our absolute max, I did refer them elsewhere, but Strathmore was our priority in 2021, and I made sure that that was the case. So,
thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, ladies, for the presentation. I'd like to ask administration, like specifically our CAO, what happens in other communities? Like how are cats, stray cats handled in other communities?
Through the chair, well, I don't have a detailed inventory, but you know, from experience, communities I've lived in, I guess I'd have to say this is actually an exemplary program, both from cost and service from what I've heard tonight. You know, typically there's a lot of in the more urban communities, there's perhaps less tolerance and more of an expectation for the municipality to take them away and deal with it. So, I've got to say, this is a new offering I've never seen before, and very impressive.
Thank you. I guess I'll be the grumpy old man here. So I recognize that there's a certain amount of money that would have to be outlaid if the town were to handle this problem strictly on their own, and I have no doubts at all about the sincerity and the passion that you and your volunteers put into this, and the care that you guys have for this. My issue, I guess, is just that it's a question of where does it end. It's like if we're taking, and I say we, but I mean because the town is funding this. If we're taking cats from Wheatland County and beyond Calgary, and it's like at what point is it not the town's responsibility anymore to pay for other municipalities to take care of their stray cat? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just to answer your question, the town isn't actually paying anything for the extra cats. Our funding is paying for 60% of the cats that we take in total. So the town's funding is only covering 40% of the cats, but we're actually rescuing 50% of the cats. So the town is 10% ahead. And I did include in our presentation a what if page, like what if Happy Cat wasn't here? And that gives you some really good figures as to what would happen if we weren't here.
Yeah, and based on those figures, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like it added up to about $37,000 per year. Is that correct?
I actually didn't 19 to 29. Yeah, about $40,000.
But it didn't include what it would cost to not have your bylaw officer, peace officer
in town doing their job.
Correct. So then referring calls to perhaps the RCMP or nobody, because it would be bylaw picking up all the
and driving them to Calgary or driving to the vet and
taking care of them in the pound for the 10-day holding period.
Yeah, like this is a rough estimate because I don't even know what you pay your salaries. So it kind of, to me, is kind of averages out to the approximately the $50,000. And we are extremely frugal, like we don't waste a cent. And we do have a little bit of a slush fund from an investment account that this year we actually had to pull $20,000 out of that account to pay our bills. But we were lucky enough that our stockbroker made us $14,000, so it didn't really hurt us. So we do have that bit of a slush, but it's kind of nice to have when sometimes a surgery can be like $7,000.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that, like with kind of taking on, all the extra cats from out of town, it increases obviously the scale of your business, and it goes from, one that's, possibly manageable with, some smaller, amount of overhead to one, like if we divide $50,000 by 117 cats, that's $427 per cat that the town would be paying, on top of all the money that you're raising. So, I mean, like it works out to, well, if I use the whole number of 236 divided into your budget for next year, that's $542 per cat that is being allocated that way. And so, as I said, $427 per cat to me is that, and that's just what the town would be paying based on $50,000 divided by the number of cats that were rescued from Strathmore. It's, I have a hard time, when our and this is just my own opinion, of course, but our budget is so tight. Like we're kind of scraping around for money to do various things, and allocating $427 per cat. It seems like it's a bit high. It's
But that was just 2021.
But our budget-
2022 is looking to be even busier.
But our
so-
budget is only 126,000, not 226.
Right, I divided 128,000 divided by 236, and that gave me $542 per cat, you know, as a rough cost this year. You know, it's, yeah, I guess it's tough for me to justify, you know, funding a problem that is essentially being imported. And, you know, I understand you're saying that the town is only funding, you know, you're saying 40% of the thing, but as I said, it becomes a scale issue when you start kind of taking on hundreds of out-of-town cats. And when you guys presented your figures last year, that was, I think it was a summation of several years, and you had adopted, or you had brought in about, or you had kind of processed, let's say, about 600 cats, and several hundred of those were actually, you know, imported into town. And so it even kind of speaks to the issue about, you know, there's only so many cats that can be adopted out into Strathmore in any given year. And so when you're importing, you know, and I recall at the end of last year, there was actually a huge problem, you know, with, you know, essentially you guys being overrun with cats and not being able to get enough food and enough litter and other things.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, like, if you think about it, that's a problem that's being created by the fact that you guys are importing hundreds of cats in from out of town. And you know, you are, as I said, you know, it's one thing to adopt out 117 cats into the community, but it's another thing to adopt out 200 or 300 cats into the community. And so I personally can't support. As I said, I recognize that there's value, you know, that the town is a business to some extent, and I recognize that there's value to the town in the load that you guys are taking off it. I'm a cat owner myself, you know, and so you know, I understand what cats can mean to people, but when I'm you know, I'm tasked with being responsible for the public purse, and I have a hard time justifying spending money or putting money towards a problem that is essentially being imported from out of town.
Deputy Mayor, I'm wondering if I could jump in and I could turn to maybe CAO Scoble before I go to you, Barb. If I could go to CAO Scoble and Mr. Pretzlaff and just ask what next steps would be as far as this MOU. Is this something that's going to be coming to us? Is it something that we'll be debating and voting on at some point in the near future? What are the next steps so the community knows? And then, and Deputy Mayor, that might answer some of your questions or give us a basis as to what we're looking at. CAO Scoble?
Yeah, yes, Your Worship. So the report, administration's report on this proposal will come back on April 6th. So, you know, in the meantime, we'll take it away and take a look at it. Probably, you know, per the Deputy Mayor's earlier comments, we'll probably look at some comparators of other communities and, you know, seek any clarification we need from Happy Cat, and then we'll provide a recommendation to council for April 6th.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you have another question? Does that I think we have a framework as far as when this will be coming to us for a fulsome discussion.
I just wanted to say that, as I said before, you know, I recognize how hard these ladies have worked, and you know, I brought my kids down to volunteer, you know, so and I really appreciate, you know, I appreciate the volunteerism aspect and the other positive parts that that this is bringing to the town. My only concerns just revolve around, you know, my responsibility to be, you know, towards the taxpayer. But thank you very much again, everyone.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mitzner.
I just have a question. I totally support your program. Town of Strathmore bylaw, are the cats not protected by the Majesty Her Queen? Is that not in our bylaw? I thought cats couldn't be picked up. Unless you change the bylaw.
Pretty sure anyone can pick up a stray on their property.
But there's not a cat catcher, like a dog catcher,
No,
like
no,
they
no.
can't be
No.
maintained any other way than what you're doing, right? Because they are protected in our bylaw. Okay, thank you.
And if
Thank
I-
you.
sorry.
Go ahead, Barb.
If I could just say that we're really not importing cats into Strathmore, and this is not something that I have taken and kept track of, but I will from now on, is probably 2/3 of the cats we adopt out are adopted outside of Strathmore.
Yeah.
So we are not bringing cats into this town.
No.
We are taking cats out of this town. And we started as a rescue of cats, not of Strathmore cats. But like I grew up in Rocky View, Michelle grew up in Strathmore. So we do a big area. We get donations from Leduc County. I don't know why they give us money every single year, but they do. Like, so we're not bringing cats and dumping them here. No. Our cats are actually getting taken out.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you for that explanation. And we'll go to Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I just have this one thing that I think is really important when it comes back to council, and that is that I appreciate that Councillor Wagner very often says what all of us are thinking, and that is that it is not incumbent on Happy Cat to go to our county neighbors and our county partners and petition for support for costs. And I appreciate too that these cats that are coming in are being adopted and you get money for that. And that, you know, it's forming part of this very, very well laid out report that you've put in front of us. And I certainly remember being a principal in Gleason across the street from a huge cat problem. And I didn't see anybody come in with guns and shoot them. No. I saw Happy Cat come in day after day after day rescuing them. Mm-hmm. And so it's not incumbent on you to do that. This is a political problem. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to see that form part of our process as it comes back. And I appreciate what Councillor Wiley and what Councillor Wagner have said with regards to this. And the last question I have, Your Worship, is with regards to, you know, what your future plans might be. If you have anything else that you are taking on that the community should be aware of.
Well, basically, assuming we do get further funding, there is areas within Strathmore that I'd like to focus on. Last year it was being the Strathaven area where we took a lot of cats. This year it'll be the Bayview area. I've had quite a number of calls, and I believe Municipal enforcement has as well. So I've kind of put like an outline for the spring-summer campaign for there. My projected cost for just trapping cats and fixing them is roughly $10,000 to $15,000. So if we don't help these cats there's going to be at least 100, if not more, come next year.
Just by reproducing.
Yeah, so I felt that this area of town is really important to like hammer down and get dealt with this year. So yeah, we got a big job ahead of us. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle and Barb. Another thing to consider is if we don't have this the way Councillor Wiley and Councillor Wagner were talking, it's going to put a lot more pressure and time commitment on our own town staff. And to be honest, I would much rather keep our bylaw or peace officers in town than having to drive a cat to the city and not have that coverage in town for other things that could be going on. So that's an important thing to consider. CAO Scoble, will this be coming, do you think it's coming as an annual MOU, or are we looking at a 3-year period? How will that be presented to us? Do you know that yet? Or is that something you folks will all be working out in the background?
I'll take that away and talk with administration about it. I mean, you know, if it was going to be a multi-year agreement, we'd probably want to synchronize it with our own multi-year budget. So perhaps it would depend whether it's in sync with it now or something that we would consider in the future multi-year budgets.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wiley.
I'm just looking for a piece of data then before you guys come back before us is how many cats came from Wheatland County? It'd be something that would be nice to know then.
We
Is there
just
any
kind
way
of did in town, out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Because that
can,
would be a useful piece of information,
Okay.
especially when, for you guys presenting to
sure.
Wheatland Council to be, or us, to give a number.
yeah.
Okay.
Because then I would just be
add that to the
curious
spreadsheet.
yeah, in the future, because then just to say to any council you present to, what do you think it would be worth to you to help this problem? And even if they give you a small number, you multiply that by the number of cats and that's right? It's not zero.
No.
As much as we don't want to spend the money on it, it's not zero. So
Yeah.
it'd be a nice piece of information to have in the
Okay,
future.
we'll add that too.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Council. Thank you, Deputy Mayor at Home. Thank you, Deb and, Barb and Michelle. We appreciate your presentation and obviously we appreciate the work that you folks are doing. And we know that it's an important thing in town because we've had a feral cat problem before and we don't want to go back to a situation where, and coming from a person who's allergic to cats and doesn't really like them, I still believe that this is something that's important to the town, you know, and you folks are doing a really good job. So we appreciate it. And administration will look forward to hear from you as far as the MOU. Thank you again.
Thank you so
thanks.
much.
Have a good evening.
You too. We do not have a consent agenda tonight, and now we move on to item 7.1, regular council meeting minutes, March 2nd, 2022. Councillor Langmaid, thank you.
I'll move that council adopt the March 2nd, 2022 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. Now we have a motion on the floor to accept those minutes. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That motion is carried. We have no tabled items tonight, and that brings us to item 9, items and/or reports from administration. 9.1, Strathmore Handybus Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Scoble, are you starting us off on this discussion?
Yes, I am, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll introduce the report here. So following the Strathmore Handybus Association's presentation of the MOU with the town on March 2nd, administration completed an internal review of it, solicited comments from external legal counsel, and met with representatives of the Handybus board to discuss proposed changes. So the MOU before you this evening incorporates the following revisions from the MOU presented on March 2nd. In clause 1.1, the word maximum was inserted to stipulate the maximum funding annually will be $175,000. Also in clause 1.1, the annual increase in funding will be the lesser of the Calgary Consumer Price Index or the council approved residential tax increase for the year to reflect currently high inflation and the uncertainty of inflation in the future with the current ongoing macroeconomic and global events. So in other words, inflationary tax increases in a high inflation environment may be unpalatable for council and or the community. And if granting high inflationary increases to the association, services in other areas of the town's operations will be disproportionately impacted to compensate. So if the approved residential tax increase is less than inflation, this drives all parties, the town and all of its partners to find operational efficiencies. In clause 3, council requested a date for the submission of the annual audited financial statements. The Handybus Association has agreed to submit these no later than May 31st each year and expects to submit them well before that date in future years, noting that this year has been impacted appropriately by the finalization of the MOU and the pandemic. And then as discussed in the body of the report, the clause regarding having a council member as a voting member has been removed based on advice from external legal review. However, this is the external advice supported by administration, and if council wishes to have a voting member on the board, given considerations entirely under council's purview, then that is council's decision this evening. And finally, as discussed in the body of the report as well, clause 6 was incorporated as recommended by the external legal counsel, and it's basically that this agreement supersedes previous agreements and is the governing document in effect once executed. So additionally, if council approves the MOU and once executed by both parties, the town will commence processing of payment of monies owed under this agreement. So in closing, I would also like to thank the Handybus board members for their willingness to discuss and collaborate on the revisions that have been proposed tonight by administration. So that concludes my introduction.
Thank you, CAO Scoble. Just to, if I could get you just to elaborate on the membership, and obviously it's quite a concern. I'm a member of the board, and I'm just wondering if you could just explain a little bit why a councillor should, or town council may not necessarily want to appoint a member to a board like this.
Basically, by being a director of this organization or sitting on the board as a voting member, individual council members could incur personal liability. So that's the legal side of it. From a governance perspective, I mean, this is perhaps more of an operational board than a governance board, like the housing body, for example. So, it's a little more difficult when council members are on an operations board, right? So it's a little more involved, but also again, more of that liability, but also it's as a funded agency of the town. I mean, and as an operational board, we're with the relationship where it is, and that council may want to consider, has the relationship come to the point that it's comfortable, funding the handy bus each year, and really just allowing them to manage the operations as they see fit, and as opposed to council again being at the governance level in your roles as elected officials in the community.
Thank you for that clarification. Much appreciated. Councillor Peterson.
It's ready with a motion, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, I would move that council authorize the mayor and CAO to execute the memorandum of understanding with the Strathmore Handy Bus Association as presented.
Thank you for that motion. And now that we have a motion on the floor, is there any further discussion on that? We've had questions, but any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. And gentlemen who are here tonight, we appreciate all the efforts you folks have put into the Handy Bus Association. We know there have been some recent changes, but we appreciate your dedication and putting your time into it. Thank you. Would you like to say anything, Mr. Jabot? Do you want to come to the microphone so the people at home can hear you? Thanks.
I guess my only comment would be I'd really like to say thank you to everyone at the town of Strathmore for, this has been a long journey, before my time even it started. Some of you have been at this longer than I have. And it's been a pleasure working with a group of people that are so like-minded. Both the town and the society have common goals, and this is a extremely good step towards achieving that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dan. Good evening. Have a good evening, everybody. That brings us to 9.2, Strathmore Day Proclamation on page 73. Good evening, Scott.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Strathmore Day. In your agenda packages, you'll find a little bit more information on the why behind this recommendation. Also on your shoulders, you might see one there. Strathmore Day was born out of a desire to celebrate our history while creating a new signature event for the town. What better time than March 20th, the day Strathmore was officially incorporated as a community. It was the day, 1908, March 20th, when Strathmore became a village. We were incorporated as a village. Our first annual Strathmore Day took place right in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, requiring our team to pivot a bit and hold the event entirely online. The domino, though, was tipped, and plans for 2022 began. This year, we've expanded to an in-person community-driven event that includes an agricultural focus, volunteer groups, fun activities, and a partnership with the Strathmore Shelter's March for Shelter. We can't thank the organizations and businesses enough for stepping up and helping to buy into this celebration. We're a small team, and for town events to grow into a sustainable community event, we really rely on these businesses and organizations to buy into our events and come aboard and help elevate them. Strathmore Day is a true community celebration as it reflects our local history and community culture. I understand you guys, unfortunately, are in strategy sessions that day, so it might be a challenge. I did it on purpose, yeah. Didn't want you guys to celebrate with me. Don't hold it against me as I ask for a recommendation here, but as part of the day's events, I would like to do that. I'd like to recommend the council provides us an official proclamation proclaiming March 20th this year, Strathmore Day.
Thank you for your presentation, Scott, and thank you to Kara, Jeff, and all your staff for all the work you're doing on this as well. I think everyone in the town is obviously yearning for a lot more events and things, and this is a good news kind of a day. It's a goodwill kind of a day, and we're looking forward to it as well. Councillor Mitzner.
So this is for every year, right? Not specifically 1 year? It's always going to be March 20th, doesn't matter what day it falls on?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for that clarification. So if there are no other questions or comments, I'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Langmaid.
I would like to move that council proclaim March 20th as Strathmore Day to celebrate our community's history and local culture, and that council authorize the mayor to sign a proclamation celebrating Strathmore Day.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Kara?
guys.
And that brings us to 9.3, micro-business tier for business licenses, found on page 76. Jeff, good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you very much, Council. When the business licensing bylaw was passed in the fall, there was a question about micro-businesses and creating a tier for micro-businesses within the bylaw. We've done some investigation there, and what we found is that the principal reason to not amend the business license bylaw around micro-businesses is that it would require the disclosure of financial information by a business to the town. And this is information that isn't currently provided to the town. So the report and the agenda outline some of the risks that are associated with this type of amendment. Privacy and information protection it's important to the town, and it's been a really high-profile issue, especially over the past couple of years. So given the changes to the land use bylaw that the planning team is expecting to bring to council later this spring, I'd suggest not pursuing a micro-business tier. The flip side is that the value that economic development has shown over the past year especially, many of the initiatives that we've completed or that are underway for 2022 are focused on new entrepreneurs. So the Community Futures Wild Rose Digital Economy program, that's a really good example of that. It provides the training that entrepreneurs have asked for around marketing and getting their businesses online. And so business licenses are an important source of revenue for the town, and that revenue supports projects like this one. So I think that given the risks and given the fact that business licenses are a source of revenue that does support these types of programs, I would recommend that you not consider that type of amendment.
Thank you for your presentation, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that I'm understanding. So you're saying that in the future here, later this spring, the land use bylaw is going to be coming before council for consideration, and there's some potential things in there that will meet the needs of these micro businesses.
That's correct, Councillor. Specifically, it's what they're focusing on in the land use bylaw is there's one particular amendment that they're looking at, and that's to remove the requirement for a development permit for home occupations. So that would save those businesses $100. So the town is really looking through all our different avenues that we can find to support businesses where we can. So even in the business licensing bylaw itself, we had, increased the age that youth volunteers qualify for a complete waiver. We brought in the long-term business supports. We brought in different pieces like that. So this, we're not reluctant because we're trying to hang on to revenue. We're reluctant primarily because there's that information overreach. But I think that we're also going through any bylaw that we can or any program that we can to really try to expand that support for businesses as well.
Yeah, those people who didn't hear, the business licensing bylaw certainly was progressive in the ways it encouraged businesses in town. I'm just asking for clarification. So this amendment that potentially will be in the land use bylaw, save businesses up to $100. Is that I just don't know this. Is that $100 of like a one-time saving, or is that an annual? Like, what is that $100?
That's a one-time fee.
And then after that, correct me, is the home occupation business $100 annual? No, they would just require a business license. We wouldn't ask them. And the business license is an annual fee, and it's about $100? Yes. Okay. Thank you, and I really look forward to looking at the land use bylaw. And I just appreciate everything you guys are doing for the small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. I just want to clarify, the land use bylaw is coming back from planning and development. I don't want to take credit for another department's work, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Councillor Wiley. Seeing no other questions or comments, we will move on to 9.4, Campaign Disclosure Statement and Financial Statement Report. Jonathan, you're speaking to this?
Thank you, Worshiping Council. I'm presenting the Campaign Disclosure Statement and Financial Statement Report. So the town is required to transmit a report to Council, updating Council on the received campaign disclosure statements. All candidates for office were required to submit the prescribed form by March 1st. The statement includes items such as the total contributions received, the total money that was fundraised, how much of the candidate's own money was used for the campaign, sorry, a little loud, and the campaign expenses. If a campaign had a surplus or deficit, they had 60 days to eliminate the surplus or deficit. If they had a surplus of more than $1,000, they had to donate to a registered charity that money that was above the $1,000 threshold. Money underneath that $1,000 could have been retained or donated to a registered charity. If they did have a deficit, they needed to either fundraise to eliminate that deficit or contribute their own funds to that campaign, to their campaign. The Local Authorities Election Act states that local jurisdictions must send a notice to all candidates who fail to file their campaign disclosure statement by March 1st. Notice of the late filing fee was for $500. There were 4 candidates who failed to submit their prescribed form by March 1st. However, the Act states that if candidates who miss the deadline submit their statement within 10 days of the filing deadline, they will not be included in the report that you have in front of you. So as previously stated, we had 4 candidates who failed to meet the filing deadline. However, 2 of those 4 did submit their prescribed form within the 10 days after March 1st. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Wiley.
I am sure you guys have gone to every measure to get a hold of these 2 remaining people for their campaign disclosure statements, but just for my understanding, what were the processes to notify them of this? It's not just that these people were disorganized and it slipped their mind. Like, what process did you have to go through to try and alert them that this was coming?
So shortly after the election, administration did reach out to all candidates and just gave them an update that this form was required. A week or 10 days before
was that like
the
a
deadline.
written? Was that a written or
an email? That's correct. Yeah, we emailed
okay.
them. I believe it was a week to 10 days before the deadline. We did also contact them by email, and I think we did also phone them as well to tell them that the deadline was March 1st, and we needed those forms submitted by that date.
One of the candidates did not file their disclosure statement, the contact information that they had originally provided was no longer valid. So we sent registered letters to that person because we couldn't phone them, the email didn't work. So we sent registered letters there.
Yeah, because that was going to be my question. If it just relied on email, like I know for myself, the email I used for campaigning, I don't use that anymore. But there were registered letters. Like, contact was made.
So sorry, so we did speak, like I left messages, like I phoned everybody and spoke with almost absolutely everybody and then followed up with an email as well. So there was like duplicate forms of communication that were sent / made.
And the registered mail, that means that you know it was received.
So the registered mail one was sent to the person who, again, we didn't have the phone or the email, so that was the only one that we used the registered mail for, because we didn't have any other way of contacting them. That I would have to confirm.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even a motion for this. They're just letting us know this is an unfortunate situation. These individuals have just, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. I go now to Councillor Langmaid and then Councillor Wegener.
Thank you. I just have one quick follow-up question, and it's for the political nerds like me that like to look at this stuff. These are public documents. If someone from town would like to review these documents to see how we all spent our money, how can they do so?
They would contact Legislative Services and we can facilitate that process with them.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to make sure the public was aware that they had a way to, I mean, these are public documents and they can choose to review them if they wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. Councillor Wegener, you're good? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Jonathan. And Kara, thank you for weighing in and clearing things up as well. We move now to committee reports. 10.1, Wadamsa Monthly Meeting Report, February 22nd, 2022. It's found on page 82. I think you've seen it in your information packages. Is there any more comments on that from the two councillors on the committee, Wegener and Peterson? We're good? Okay, thank you. We then move on to items directly related to council. 11.1, Notice of Motion regarding Post-Secondary Attraction and Retention Policy. This is one that was brought forward by Councillor Wiley. Did you, you probably wanted to speak to it, Councillor Wiley?
Yeah, I think it's self-explanatory. Everybody would like to see some kind of a post-secondary in Strathmore, whether it's some type of a satellite campus, offices, storefront, like just what can we do to attract these? So I'm prepared to make the motion.
Well, I think tonight, is it a notice of motion it's a notice of motion, is it not?
Well,
oh, it is a motion, okay.
Yeah, I think it's just a type.
Oh, okay, thank you. Councillor Wiley.
All right. I would move that council direct administration to obtain information in how smaller municipalities in Alberta encourage post-secondary institutions to invest in and maintain satellites, campuses, or offices in their local jurisdiction. And that council direct administration to prepare recommendations based on the research in other communities, as well as identify elements in the Alberta 2030 initiative that addresses Strathmore's post-secondary needs and report back to council with this information within 30 days.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Discussion, Councillor Peterson.
Councillor Wiley may want to speak to
Oh, did you want to
first.
speak to the motion?
Your Worship, I so do support this motion, and I'm very, very excited about the potential, and I know that our communications and economic development have been already working on this, and this gives some very definitive parameters and direction. And one of the things that I'd like to see when this comes back is that we actively incorporate our rural reimagined context of post-secondary and what that could look like in terms of our new visioning, and also utilize our new and evolving partnerships with Siksika. I think it would be it would really lend itself to what Councillor Wiley has brought forward in this motion. I'm really looking forward to it coming back. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Wiley.
Yeah, and I think there's so much potential for partnerships, especially in the last 2 years, as we've all discovered the potential of online learning and Zoom lessons and what have you, that I think a lot of these campuses are looking for ways to have storefronts and administration. I think if we hit this ahead of other municipalities, we might be able to get it. The other thing is, since I've lived in Strathmore, I've gone to many council debates, and the campaign is always revitalize downtown, revitalize downtown, revitalize downtown. So I'm really curious if we can somehow piggyback on that and see this maybe move towards some revitalization too. So I think that's in all of our strategic goals. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. So if there's no further discussion, oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wholeheartedly support this. I want to thank Councillor Wiley for bringing this forward and getting us kind of pointed in this direction. I agree with what Councillor Peterson has said as well. This will be a great way to kind of look for collaborations, and I'm really excited to see where this could lead. This would be a great opportunity for our community, depending on how it goes. And again, I just want to thank Councillor Wiley for bringing this to us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So at this time, I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. We move now to bylaws. 12.1, non-residential municipal tax incentive amending bylaw number 22-09. And Jamie, welcome, and you'll be speaking to this.
Yes, Your Worship. So, good evening, Your Worship and Council. Tonight I'll be presenting an amendment or overview and amending bylaw 2209 that would amend the non-residential municipal tax incentive bylaw. So previously this year, the tax incentive bylaw was adopted by Council in February. Upon talking with some interested investors to the town, they shared that more certainty around the taxing of machinery and equipment would be appreciated. Historically, machinery and equipment has not been taxed in Strathmore for many decades. And by amending the tax incentive bylaw, businesses who qualify for that incentive would get some certainty that we would not change that, or future councils could not change that in terms of that specific assessed person for 15 years. So in terms of the impact, assuming future councils don't make that change to taxing machinery and equipment, then there would be no impacts. The only change would happen is if a future council chose to begin to tax machinery and equipment, then a certain assessed person, again, if they qualified for the incentive, would be protected for up to 15 years. So in terms of the actual bylaw itself, a new section was added, section 11, that kind of outlined that eventuality. And so I'll answer any questions that council may have. Other than that, that concludes my presentation, and we're recommending that council give all 3 readings to that bylaw tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, questions. Councillor Wiley?
A long time ago, there was a popular premier who said Alberta's open for business. I don't know if you remember him. Anyway, this announces that Strathmore is open for business. And what I love about this is in uncertain times, we're offering some certainty to our business community.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Any other questions? Councillor Peterson?
I'm ready with a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I would move the council give first reading to bylaw number 22-09, being a bylaw to amend the non-residential municipal tax incentive bylaw number 22-03.
Thank you. There is no discussion or questions on that first reading, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Councillor Langmaid?
I didn't touch the button yet. I would like to move that council give second reading to bylaw number 22-09, being a bylaw to amend the non-residential municipal tax incentive bylaw number 22-03. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. And now that we have a motion for second reading, is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Your Worship. Deputy
Mayor Montgomery, discussion?
Oh, thank you. I just want to say, as Councillor Wiley kind of said there, this this is a demonstration, I think, that this council is, and administration, I will give a lot of credit to administration. They, picked up this ball and they really carried it. I think that it demonstrates that council and administration is willing and able and ready to work hard to do what we can to help facilitate economic activity in this community. And so I wanted to thank everyone involved for their work on this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Those are definitely good comments. So I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Councillor Peterson. Unanimous consent, page 85. Yes,
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make the motion if
Councillor
Councillor
Langley.
Peterson needs an extra second. I would like to move the council give unanimous consent to a third and final reading of bylaw number 22-09, being a bylaw to amend the non-residential municipal tax incentive bylaw number 22-03.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried.
And Your Worship, I would move the council give third and final reading to bylaw number 22-09, being a bylaw to amend the non-residential municipal tax incentive bylaw number 22-03.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, administration, for all your work on this. And that brings us to item 12.2, Council Procedure Bylaw number 22-10. Jonathan, you're speaking to this?
Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'll be presenting Council Procedure Bylaw number 2210. The purpose of this bylaw is to regulate council and committee of the whole meetings. The Council Procedure Bylaw was reviewed with council last at the January 26th Committee of the Whole meeting, where there were multiple requests for changes in the bylaw. Administration has tried to make all these requested changes. As this is kind of a full agenda today, I'll kind of give a brief overview of the changes made and answer any questions that you may have. So, a process for deciding who the acting mayor would be in the absence of the mayor and deputy mayor has been added in section 3.7 of the bylaw. We've also added section 4.2. And all this does is clarify that this bylaw does apply to committee of the wholes, and where needed, we will make necessary modifications. So the mayor will be treated as chair when we're discussing committee of the whole, etc. Section 8.1 states that the first regular council meeting of every month will begin with a traditional land acknowledgement that is prepared in conjunction with Siksika Nation. And we've also, in the agenda template that I'll go through afterwards, we've included what the Blackfoot word is for each month in the agenda. Uh, 10.1 states that council will prioritize the use of video calling when possible. And 10.5 states that when a councillor attends a closed meeting through electronic communications, they will be required to confirm that they have attended the closed meeting alone prior to the start of the closed meeting, and we will include that statement in the minutes. The next big change is section 21 of the bylaw. This is in regards to challenging the mayor. This language was borrowed heavily from Robert's Rules of Order and the current procedure bylaw. And probably the most significant change has been section 31, and that refers to councillor inquiries. So Council will always have the opportunity to request information from administration through the office of the CAO. This section also covers a question and answer period in both regular council meetings and committee of the whole, and also administrative inquiries. To help out with this, we have a flow chart that is in your agenda package, last page. So when a request comes in, administration may be able to help to determine, where that request would fit. If it is an admin inquiry or if it is an actionable item, we can help you with a notice of motion. Smaller inquiries that will take less than 5 days, we can answer via email to all of council. And if council so chooses, they could bring them to a Q&A session in a regular council meeting or a committee of the whole. We also have in the agenda package attached agenda meeting templates. So you'll see a lot of changes to what our current template looks like. A lot of this is just for streamlining and for clarity. We have a lot of headings on our current agenda, and we want to try and pare that down as much as possible. So you'll see there the traditional land acknowledgement for April, and that is the Blackfoot word for April. And then we are going to group all of councillor information and inquiries in that section 10. So that's where you'd have your boards and committees reports, question and answer period, administrative inquiries, and notices of motion. And if council approves this bylaw, we would use this template for starting in April 6th. We've also included in your agenda package our council meeting deadlines. Those are subject to change just as processes change internally. And also draft forms for requests to be a delegation, request to speak, and authorization to speak on behalf of another person. That concludes my presentation. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Jonathan. Questions for Jonathan, Councillor Peterson?
I just have one question, and one of the things that I saw the Calgary Foundation do with regards to land acknowledgement that I thought was extraordinarily creative was that at the beginning of their meetings, they have a screen outside their office, and they actually have a visual. It's the best land acknowledgement I've ever seen, and I think that they allow others to use it. And it speaks to all of Treaty 7 and Treaty 3, and it is authored by Agar Wolflag, or Elder Clarence Wolflag, who's Siksika. So it is really lovely, but I like the idea that they run it on a loop, outside before the council meeting, and it kind of fits that whole context very, very nicely.
We can look into that through
Just an idea, I don't know.
That was the Calgary Community Foundation?
It's the Calgary Foundation, and it's on their website. And they actually have two. There is an abridged version, I think, as well. But yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
Definitely look into that.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. So any other questions for Jonathan? Then I'm looking for a motion to begin the potential readings. Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
Thank you. I will give, I'll make a motion that council give first reading to bylaw number 22-10, being the council procedure bylaw.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Peterson.
I'd move that council give second reading to bylaw 22-10, being the council procedure bylaw.
Thank you. And now that we have a motion for second reading, is there discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor Montgomery.
So the council procedure bylaw is very near and dear to my heart, of course. I'm kind of joking, but I think that council had a really good discussion about this at that committee of the whole. I really appreciate how administration has taken in all of those opinions and went back and revised this, and I think that administration has done a great job putting this together. It spells out a lot of things very clearly, but that there's also a bit of room for flexibility. For instance, with the speaking time. So I just I want to thank council for that discussion and for sharing of ideas and compromising And I also want to thank administration as well for taking everything and putting together a good document. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Langmaid.
I'd like to move the council give unanimous, or we're on the unanimous consent, yeah? Give unanimous consent to a third and final reading of bylaw number 22-10 being the council procedure bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Councillor Langmaid.
Finally move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 22-10 being the council procedure bylaw.
Thank you for that motion, and I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, administration, Kara and Kevin. Much appreciated. That brings us to 13. We have no urgent business tonight. Number 14, questions between councillors and council statements. Anything tonight? Seeing and hearing none, we move on to administrative inquiries, which I guess tonight will be the last time we'll see that as an item, a bullet. That brings us to, we need a motion to go in camera, and if you could, with your motion, just mention the FOIP sections, please. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I would like to move the council move in camera to discuss items related to sections 16(1)(b), 19(2), and 24(1)(a) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act at 7:36 p.m.
Thank you. We do have a motion to go in camera. I'll call the question. All in favor? And we are going in camera.